Dead Island was released in 2011 by a developer called Techland. It was a 4-player co-op open-world zombie RPG thing, and it was rather fun in spite of the fact it was a little rough around the edges. In 2013, Techland released a sequel to Dead Island, but it wasn't called Dead Island 2, it was called Dead Island Riptide. It had an extra character and new weapons and locations. Techland are now working on a third zombie game, but it's not called Dead Island 2 or Dead Island Riptide 2. It's not called Dead Island anything, it's called Dying Light. Confused yet? You will be. Dead Island 2 is coming out in 2015, which is when Dying Light is coming out, but Dead Island 2 is not being developed by Techland, it's being developed by Yager, who are the people who made Spec Ops The Line, which had nothing to do with zombies whatsoever. Dead Island 2 is being built by a new development team in a new engine and isn't even set on an island, it's set in California. With all that out of the way, here's Bernd Diemer and Jan-Erik Laubel from Yager and Deep Silver respectively to tell you what it is that makes this a Dead Island game.
Multiplayer, co-op. For me, as a player, I didn't work on the first game, but I played it a lot, and it was quite popular at Yager, funnily enough, while we were finishing Spec Ops. And I always wondered a little bit why. I didn't realize it back then, but what made it like last longer than other games is how easy you could play with other people. You know, you didn't need to agree on a time or a date or wait for 6 people are here, so now we go. It was kind of like start playing. Looking back now, when we start, I realized that this is one of the coolest things ever about that island. And you know, the game came out in 2011, and still, if you go, I just had that prior to Gamescom because I wanted to check out something in Dead Island 1. You know, how did they do this thing? And you play for 10 minutes at most, and somebody else joins your game. And for a game that is like 3 years old, that's phenomenal. That's really special. So this is the main thing we grabbed on, and we said, this is the heart of the game. We need to keep that. We need to make that better. We need to look at it and find out what made that thing tick, and then do even more with it.
So you know, when people came to our booth, you know, at conventions, you know, like die-hard Dead Island fans, when they were talking to us, you know, what they really liked, it was never about, you know, this scene made me really sad, or this part was, the story element was really cool. You know, we're always talking about these awesome fun moments they had with their friends. You know, we always heard that, you know, how they were together around the pool area, kicking zombies into the water and slashing them, or just, you know, driving around, having some fun. You know, for us, that felt like this is the heart of the game, and that's where we want to concentrate on and be better and totally unique and try out new things.
So what's new in that regard? Well, twice as many players for a start, and no expectation to help them either. Yager and Deep Silver describe it as the world's smallest MMO.
So when you start Dead Island 2, you know, you are alone. It feels like a single player. You don't know actually that you're on a server already and that there are other players. You have your normal quest. Maybe you found a cool blueprint, so you were like, okay, I need to find these 3 resources, so let's go and find them. But then all of a sudden you hear noise, explosions, you hear people screaming over a voiceover, and you're like, okay, what's going on now? And then, you know, you go down the street and you see there's a bar, fortified, you know, there are walls, and there are actually 7 other players fighting off a huge zombie horde, and you're like, okay, I want to join that now. I mean, I thought I'm just playing single player, and now there are these 7 other guys, so I want to fight with them. Or you might be, hey, you know what, I do that later, because I have currently my stuff to do, and you know, that's what we want to bring into the world of Dead Island. It's an open world, and you choose when to play alone, when to play with friends. You know, we always say, okay, it's 8 players, but that doesn't mean it's 8 players co-op. You know, it might be 8 players playing single player actually, or it might be 2 groups of 4 people fighting against each other, or it might be a gigantic group of 8 players fighting off in an awesome co-op event. You know, we want to leave it up to the players to choose.
Probably the most striking thing about Dead Island 2 is the bright Californian visual style, all powered by the shiny new Unreal Engine 4, which will become increasingly common on next-gen consoles. Dead Island 2 is like a delightful summer vacation that just happens to have been ruined by the end of the world.
That's what we wanted to feel like. It's one thing, that's another thing that for Dead Island, like the first one when it came out, again, me as a player, it was surprising because like the first scene when you come out of this hotel and the door opens and you see this beautiful beach and everything, I really liked that because it was new, you know, I didn't expect that, like, oh, beautiful tropical location and hey, zombies. And So then we said, hey, we need to do the same thing, but we need to go bigger a little bit, and we also would like to have a location that is instantly recognizable, that you don't have to explain. And so we thought, what is the one location on this planet that everybody knows? No matter where you go, deepest corner of the jungle, and ask people Hollywood, they go like, yeah, Hollywood, Hollywood. Even if you've never been there, you have a picture in your mind. And it's also, another quality is it's a place where people dream of going, you know? Especially Europeans, but also Americans. You know, going to California is kind of like become famous and get rich and whatever. And so we said, hey, let's take this most beautiful location ever on the planet and drop zombies in there and mess it up.
It's not just Los Angeles though. In addition, there's San Francisco and a third as yet unannounced location. So how does San Francisco differ?
It has the Golden Gate Bridge. The only difference. Anything else is the same. It's built around landmarks. It's what we do is basically, when we started thinking about the levels, we didn't want to. I mean, we're not a simulation, so we don't take a street map and rebuild it. What we do is we start with the historic landmarks. So in LA, that's the Hollywood sign, which you actually have to pay for. Thankfully, we could convince these guys that it's worth paying for the Hollywood sign, because it's not cheap. You have to pay a dude who owns the Hollywood sign. And then we have Venice Beach and various other points. And in San Francisco, we did the same thing. So we started with the Golden Gate Bridge. We have Pier 39. So locations that are basically, if you would Google San Francisco, the pictures, like the first 5 pictures, because that's how we do research. No. We actually send people over there. But this is kind of like an indicator to what people have in mind when they think San Francisco.
So that's Dead Island 2, and after the surprisingly not crap Spec Ops The Line, we're expecting a pretty slick take on the Dead Island concept. Whether it shares the rampant, insatiable ambition of Techland's Dying Light might be the deciding factor though. Either way, 2015's looking like a vintage year for mullering zombies with electric axes. Like and subscribe for much more on Dead Island 2 as we get it, and we will see you next time on Outside Extra.